r/AskReddit. Mothers of Reddit. Who was the worst girlfriend your son brought home? What is the story? I'm a mother of 2 grown-up sons. I generally keep my opinions to myself about their choices and try and get on with whoever they are with. My eldest once had a beautiful, seemingly intelligent girlfriend who was, to be polite, a little highly strung. His room was at the very top of the house, and one day I was downstairs playing music to drown out the sound of her getting completely hysterical. From 2 floors up I heard the unmistakable sound of a really hard slap and her screaming. I flew up the stairs thinking that he had finally cracked and crossed the line and hit her, which I think is completely unacceptable. When I saw them, I was shocked to see that he had a handprint across his face and scratches. To be fair, she was honest enough to tell me that she was just in a bitchy mood and he hadn't done anything to her, but I could never look at her again without being aware of what she was capable of. I was so relieved when they broke up. As Kevin Bacon says, keep the fights clean and the sex dirty. I would just add, keep the volume down during both. During a pretty dark time in my life, I brought home this girl I met from a rave. That should have been enough for me to realize this was a bad idea, but I had just gotten out of a 2.5-year relationship with my high school sweetheart, and she was the next human to show interest in me. When my parents asked her name, she introduced herself as Stormy, her nickname from middle school. She then told us she was legally blind and albino, said she could see ghosts, and had a history of talking to dead people. Loved pot and was an artist. She was actually pretty good for a blind chick. She then asked if I'd like to drive her across the country to meet her family after knowing me for 4 days. That ended pretty quickly. My parents and friends still give me shit for it, and with every girl they've met since then, they ask if her name is something like Blizzard or Rainfall. Well, I'm the sister, but the girl my one brother brought home was insane. First off, she was very abusive, verbally and physically. The physical was never taken too far because my brother was so much larger than her, but I could tell it was really embarrassing for him. She was also very jealous of any female who would talk to my brother, including me. She even accused me of trying to seduce him away from her. Her behavior got creepier over time, showing up at our house uninvited expecting to stay the night, which my parents were not okay with. Finally my brother wised up and dumped her, and she went berserk. She called so much we had to block her number. She would come to our house and sit on the porch until we threatened to call the police. She and my brother worked at a school together, and she forces the school to go into lockdown when she texted my brother telling him she had locked herself in a bathroom and was about to kill herself. That was the last straw though, and my brother and the police had a nice talk about leaving him the hell alone. Oh, and she also had bed bugs the whole time we had let her stay at our house. So we had fun little reminders for a few months before we finally got rid of them. This is actually a story about my own parents and how my gran hated my mother. My gran was a very old-fashioned English Protestant. Prim and proper, stiff upper lip, can be very judgmental, and so on and so forth. My dad met my mum when he was 20 and she was 25. It's the early 80s and my mum used to be a bit of a punk. Short messy hair, black and white striped drain pipes with patches and rips, leather jacket. They'd been seeing each other for a while and had gone out drinking, ended up staying in a pub lock-in until the early morning, and decided it'd be safer for her to stay at his. She slept on the sofa, out of respect to my dad's parents, whom she had yet to meet, and she was woken up when my gran entered the living room, tutted, went and stomped off upstairs to my dad's room, and said quite loudly, "What in God's name is that in the living room?" That didn't stop them of course, but my mum knew she'd never win her over, so ultimately made no effort to, which didn't help matters. My granddad on the other hand, got on with my mum like a house on fire. The next time my mum met my dad's family was around Christmas. The women were expected to spend the day cooking and preparing a meal, whilst my dad, granddad and uncles were going at the pub. As the men were getting ready to leave, my gran handed my mum a penny and asked her to start helping out, and my mum just handed it her back and said, "No thanks, I think I'll be going to the pub with the lads." She then ordered a pint of Guinness, to the amazement of my granddad, who said, really proudly to my dad, "Ooh, I like her. It's about time someone stood up to those witches." I'm a sister, but my brother has dated some girls who were pretty out there over the years. Here they are in chronological order. Rita, who worked construction, and who was 27 and my brother was 17 at the time. Christina, the dedicated virgin who had apparently blown half his friends. Carolina, the violent one who was hitting him all the time and whose mother, who was a prosecutor, made a pass at my brother too. Mariah, the anorexic who hated all his friends and wanted him to spend time only with her. Anastasia, the model, yeah, right, who was really short and would call the landline and hang up unless my brother happened to answer the phone because she was too shy to ask for him. She would also spend the night over in the family home and then do the walk of shame the next morning, not talking to anyone. Dorita, the aspiring actress, who threw a fit cause I sat in the front seat next to my brother when he came to pick me up from the airport. She was his girlfriend, and that seat was rightfully hers. And the queen of them all, the woman who more than 10 years later is still starring in my nightmares. 7. Vicky, the complete nutjob who, among other things, called our landline at 4 AM and woke up my mum to tell her that she was in the process of fucking some guy cause my brother broke her heart. Then after my mum unplugged the phone, Vicky left around 4 messages full of her making sex noises. Over to hang out on 4th of July. Within about half an hour I walked into his room, door open, by the way, and she was straddling him. He looked confused and overwhelmed, pants at his knees. She jumped up, pulled her shorts on, and went to our front porch to call her boyfriend, to tell him how much she loved him. After she left, and I finished ripping my son a new asshole, calm descended and he explained that they had been watching TV, and she pulled his pants down and jumped on him. What was I going to do? Say no, but it was creepy and gross. I didn't even like her that way. I feel disgusting. It was a pretty bad day all around. Bonus, when he blew her off after she told him she was pregnant, this was a week later, she wasn't. He did learn a valuable lesson though. Not a mother, but my older brother just loves to put his dick in the crazy ones. His first girlfriend in college got mad with him for breaking up. She trashed his car, broke the passenger window, cut all the upholstery inside, took off the decals on the car, like where the trunk is, and spray painted bitch on the hood. A few years later he goes into the Navy. My mom is watching Dr. Phil. I'm on the internet. Mom says, "Dear God, is that Lori?" I look and I thought it was her, but didn't believe it. I said, well, if the husband's name is Keelan, and they have a baby, it's her. It was her. Long story short, she was still in love with my brother. Her husband loved an ex-girlfriend, but they were trying to make it work. Can't make this shit up. So, my brother goes through boot camp, or whatever, then goes down to Florida to start his schooling or something. Starts dating this nice Navy girl. We met her, he brought her home, and we went down to visit. Super nice girl, smart, funny, just all around pleasant gal. They date for less than a year, and then my brother gets kicked out of the Navy, underage drinking. They tried to do the long distance thing, didn't work, they broke up. She, apparently, did not want to break up. She drove 10-ish hours to come where we lived, and fucked up my car, the car we had taken to visit my brother in. So, I wake up, get ready to go to high school on Monday morning, and my car is just fucked up. She keyed the car, she put sugar in the gas tank, and tampons, and spray painted the entire car with obscenities. She misspelled pussy. I called her and threatened her, cussed her out, told her if I ever saw her again she'd be eating through a straw. Why do girls fuck up cars? I hate it. Just don't. My brother has been single for a while and honestly I'm just relieved. I want him to find a nice, quiet girl and not turn her crazy. That can't be too much to ask for. Edit. Found the Dr. Phil episode. Not sure if it's against the rules to post. I'll remove it if it is. Seems the summary focuses more on the husband's ex than my brother, but still, shit was cray. Dr. Phil. Edit number 2. Okay. So, brother was already in trouble for something, can't remember, and he was still in A school or B school. He had been put in a trouble dorm, I want to call it the brig, but I don't think that's what it was called, and then got in trouble a couple more times. The last thing he got in trouble for was drinking in the brig, and he was underage. They told him he'd have to do rehab, he declined. Oh, wait, I've also been the worst girlfriend. 15. Dating an 18-year-old dude, ditched work one summer afternoon to go over to his place and fuck while parents were at work. Living room floor, I'm topless and he's bottomless, going down on him. Backdoor creaks open, he grabs his jeans and hauls ass somewhere, leaving me standing there not knowing what the fuck to do. Dad walks in to find me backed up against a houseplant, clutching my shirt to my chest. Where's my son? I point to the back of the house, he wanders off. From then on, and I do mean from then on, his dad referred to me as the cactus lady because the plant I'd backed up against, apparently not even realizing, was a cactus. Then there was the time, same dude, we threw a party while his parents were out of town for the weekend, setting aside how balls out crazy the party had been till it finally died down around 3 in the morning. When the parents walked in at 4 a.m, roughly 18 hours early, who did they find sitting at their kitchen table barely dressed, holding a joint? Me, of course, and only me. Because everyone else was faster at gfing. God, they must have hated me. Not a mom, but my brother brought back a girl 5 years younger, cannot cook, cannot work, cannot talk about things other than gossip, celebrity, and fashion, goes to beauty salon once a week. All shopping and beauty costs, when they were still dating, come from my brother's pocket, who got his money from mom. Gets angry to my brother over the smallest things. She threatened my brother to break up once because he cancelled their Saturday date, but my brother cancelled it because my mother suddenly fainted and needed to be taken to a hospital. She doesn't have any brain but her boobs are big. She often went to clubs and got drunk without telling my brother. Brother thought she was the most chaste woman he ever met. When she came for dinner, she sat like a princess and didn't help anything at all. If she wanted drinks or anything, she'd ask my mother, like she was her waitress, to bring it for her. My parents were aged, but my brother loved her so much that he finally married her. My brother has lunch at parents' home every day because his wife cannot cook lunch and won't learn despite the fact that she doesn't work. She wakes up around 12 every day while my brother has to be at the office at 9 every morning. She insisted on living separate from parents when they got married. That's totally fine. But instead of seeing my brother's wallet's capacity and rent a house, she insisted on buying a grand new house or no wedding. And she had the audacity of pestering my brother to ask my parents to buy it for them. Well, my parents surrendered and bought them a house fully furnished with pricey furnitures, just like she wanted. My mom still suffers every day. Edit. Forget to write the main reason brother married her. He took her virginity and thought, at that moment, he's responsible for her for eternity. Yes, brother has very weird chivalry sense. Edit 2. For those who see trouble in lunch, may I tell you that we are Indonesian born Chinese and our culture is different than yours. Housewives are expected to do housework, while husbands are expected to bring home the bacon, unless you're a working pair. Working wives are generally exempted from chores, but not all. This girl doesn't do anything all day, so we expect her at least to be able to take care of brother. What's more, I met wife's sisters before. They are 3 sisters together, and wife is the middle child. They aren't rich enough to hire housekeepers or maids, so the girls do their own washing and help around the house. But brother's wife, according to her eldest sister, never help with it. Her mother or youngest sister always does for her, washing her clothes and dishes. The other sisters are used to working part-time since middle school to help economy, but not brother's wife. Reason why her mother pamper her? She is the prettiest and her mother expects her to snatch a rich boyfriend/husband to help with family's economy. I don't personally hate her, I just hate her spoiled habit, but at the same time I realize this is her mother's fault for teaching her living like this. My family has been trying to make her a better person with little success. Habit does die hard. TL. Doctor, brother's newly married wife is a bitch who can't do any work, spent brother's money for shopping, and got angry when brother cancelled date for bringing mom to hospital. What's more, her mother taught her to be a gold digger. My mother sat down my girlfriend at one point and pointed out that her son was nothing like her, which basically equated to my mom indirectly calling my girlfriend a slut. Little background for the story. Her parents did not give a fuck what she did. For Christmas they gave us handcuffs so I could tie her up. Her dad and mom walked in on us multiple times as teenagers and just said hi. They were grabbing stuff from the freezer as we would be in the basement. My mom walked into my 16-year-old girlfriend mounting me, and when I screamed "Oh shit mom," my girlfriend decided I was roller playing. She got really into it, telling me, "Who's your mother? Yeah, you like fucking this, don't you?" This girl was really into roleplay, and this was by far one of the least weird scenarios she came up with, lol. She got really into it, so I just kind of stood there for a few seconds. Girlfriend mounting me and calling me a dirty boy, mother staring at me in disbelief, me just starting back and forth at both. After the initial shock, I proceeded to Hulk throw the girl off me. When I mean Hulk throw, I mean I pushed her off and she went flying, and then she saw my mother, lol. We had a talk after. It did not go over well. Hi, the guy who brought crazy home here. You might remember me from such comments as that one I posted on that LE5 post that got deleted. I'm going to be a little vague because she's left me with this irrational paranoia that she'll find this comment, get angry, and say fucked up things to friends of mine. So this girl was my best friend in high school. We had dated other people in the time we knew each other, but naturally ended up together. The first few weeks were fine. We banged like bunnies. Eventually, she started being cold, coming over just to get blowed, then leaving immediately after. She would make it a point to not kiss me. She started being emotionally manipulative, saying things to my sensitive teenage self specifically because she knew it bothered me. Don't get me wrong, I was a dick too, but not quite on the same level. Eventually she did something, then lied to her parents about it, and directed the blame at me. She explained that her parents now hated me, and we had to continue dating without their knowledge. My parents, at this point, thought, hey, that's pretty fucked up. No, I explained, triumphantly, you just don't understand what we have. Now this relationship became a train wreck. We broke up every other day, and by that I mean she'd break up with me, and I'd beg for her to get back with me. Eventually, we took another break, but during this one she decided to bang several dudes in a matter of days. After I found out, she decided she wanted to end our break, and I said I wasn't sure, you know, because of all the fucking. She got mad that I wasn't immediately accepting, and we got into a huge dumb high school fight. We stopped talking after that for several years, and that was the end of our relationship. Epilogue. So recently, she contacted me through this old social networking site called Facebook. She sent a friend request. Over the last few years, I've tried to become a better person in general, and I have made a lot of progress. So my first decision as a better person was to give her the benefit of the doubt. I decided maybe she's changed too. Maybe we can at least be friends. Still, I decided to be cautious and swap messages with her first. Most of it was your standard how do ya do's, how's the weather, and the like. Eventually we got talking about our history and our relationship and the sex. And I tried to dismiss the sex talking because when we'd break up before, that's the kind of shit that got us to patch things up. I didn't want to lead her on with such a conversation. So my second decision as a better person was that I tried to change the subject. No response for like a week. Her friend request had been withdrawn. I decide not to leave it alone and send her another message. And then she responds with this long rant about this other guy who's totally in love with her, but they are totally just friends. and how he reads her messages and email, and they agreed I'm an asshole, and so they won't be discussing anything further. My more immature self would argue the point and continue the exchange in a desperate attempt to prove my innocence. So my third and final decision as a better person was to do the opposite and walk away from the situation. I deleted all the messages we exchanged and logged back out of Facebook. Then I went and bought some cheap Mexican fast food. Then I moved on with my life. In general, it seems to have worked out okay. I mean, I'm not exactly an unhappy person anymore. So there's that. Sister here. My brother is still with this girl. She has a kid from a previous marriage and sees my brother as a personal ATM. She has lost her rent in the past and made him pay it. She got me a loan and told me that they were getting married this summer. When I talked to him about it, he said that was a complete lie. Then she calls me a liar for confronting him about it. He bought her a ring last Christmas, just a little blue stone. She wears it on her ring finger and posted it all over Facebook like they were getting married. She also told her whole family they were getting married. He insists they are not. She told me details about their sex life despite me desperately trying to change the topic. She did this the first time she ever got a chance to talk to me alone. Never tell a sibling about the sex life. Definitely do not ask for advice about what to do when your brother isn't as horny as they would like. His friends hate her because she constantly isolates him from them and she blabs all sorts of inappropriate details about their sex life. One of his best friends asked what she liked about him. She couldn't come up with any tangible answers. I asked him the same question. He said she was easy to talk to. I asked what else. Dead awkward silence for several minutes. He couldn't come up with literally anything else. When he spends a night with his friends without her, she loves to go to bars and then text him about all the hot guys hitting on her and buying her drinks. He is completely blind to how manipulative she is. She will call him on the phone at night and put her son on and tell him to say goodnight to daddy. I can't stand her. I told him this, but if I continue to speak up it will damage my relationship with him. I'm not aggressive enough to tell her off, so I just ignore her and refuse to hang out with him if she is around. I will never ever welcome her into our family. Ever. My own crazy ex story. Bipolar, intelligent, smoking hot body and okay/average face. First met her during an extended manic period that lasted a few months. She loved being dominated during sex. I'd handcuff her to the bed and we'd fuck, and afterwards she'd beg me not to uncuff her. Then she'd suck me off until I was hard again. I'd yank her hair and force her to deep throat me, her own preference, and she'd be gagging and crying until I was almost finished. Then I'd pop it into her vagina, or sometimes ass, and come inside her again. Instead of cleaning up she'd start sucking me off again to get me hard. Sometimes we'd do this on repeat for 6 to 8 hours straight. One time I came inside her 18 times over the course of an evening and overnight, while she stayed cuffed to the bed the entire time without even a bathroom break, and in the morning, when she finally cleaned up the cum just gushed out of her. 4 months later I learned she'd been lying about being on the pill, and she was pregnant. By that time she was no longer manic, and had become angry, violent, and suicidal. She threatened to kill herself if I left her. Fortunately she miscarried. I dumped her stupid ass and moved far away from her. Not a mom, but my best friend in high school had probably the most insane person for a girlfriend that I've ever seen. It started out all normal and she seemed to be okay, but slowly over time she became more and more insane. She would constantly stalk him via phone, show up at random times to the point that he eventually broke up with her. This is when she lost the plot completely. She started calling his house constantly. I was there when this started, and it got so bad he left the phone off the hook. We were playing video games and drinking beers until 3 in the morning. Just before we turned in for the night, my buddy put the phone back on the hook. I don't think it had even had a chance to stop moving when the phone rang. They eventually unlisted their phone, but she started showing up at his house at all hours of the night. Thankfully it's South Africa, so she couldn't get into the actual property, but she made up for that by screaming over the gate and threatening all sorts of wonderful stuff. My friend had to call the police on her multiple times. He eventually moved house, didn't list his address or numbers anywhere, and we lost contact. So did she. I didn't speak to him for about 10 years after that, and it was impossible to find him. Through pure chance I happened to bump into his sister online and we were able to get in contact. Turns out, Psycho Lady had managed to track him down again and started calling his house and screaming at his wife 10 years later. Gotta give this girl an A for effort. I worked with a woman for several years whose son had a truly unbelievable girlfriend. I met her a couple times. She seemed sweet enough, but the stories my coworker came back with boggled the mind. One night, her son was hanging out with his girl and their friends. The friends were drinking. The son was not, because he has some form of severe allergy to most alcohols. His girlfriend and friends tricked him into drinking, as in secretly spiked his drink with booze to see what would happen. The boy had a mild seizure, vomited blood and passed out. The girlfriend and his friends freaked out and ran off, leaving him there. Nobody called for medical backup or even a responsible adult. The mom found him and got him to the hospital. Later that night a policeman rounded up the friends and girlfriend and tried to get an explanation out of them. The girlfriend excused herself to go to the bathroom and climbed out the window and took off. After that night the boy wised up and tried to dump her, but she flipped out and was having none of it. This is where it really gets whack. She got pregnant, and her grandmother heard her bragging to a friend over the phone that she had done it on purpose by poking holes in all their condoms. She was sure she had the boy trapped forever, but thankfully, when the baby was born, he asked for a paternity test. Never heard from her again. Play safe, kids. I think I was the worst girlfriend brought home to my ex-boyfriend's mom. I was 15. He was 16. There was nothing really wrong with me. I was just the first girl he had ever taken to meet his mom. He lived with his mother and grandma, mom's mom. They were both very strict and religious. Didn't approve of girls in their house. Didn't approve of us dating. Didn't approve of me in particular, since I didn't go to their church and my family was not really religious. It was always really awkward. At the time we were volunteering together at a tutoring facility, and he was driving me. So we would go to his place after school to eat and hang out for maybe an hour before tutoring started. Then he dropped me off at home afterwards. The entire time his mother and grandma nitpicked me and were pretty rude, making offhand comments and the like. So I was really quiet and didn't really talk to them, which I think made it worse. He moved out of their house a year later, and to my knowledge, has never taken another girl to meet them, since he cut all contact with them. This was 9 to 10 years ago that he moved out. So, I was the first, last, best, and worst girl to ever meet his crazy mom and grandma. Thank you so much for watching the whole video. Please leave a like and subscribe.